Hi everyone, Teresa Aker here from Success Diaries with Teresa Aker. It's my pleasure today to introduce you to Jeorja Turner. How you doing, Jeorja?
Good. How are you? Thank you for having me. I
Oh,
feel
it's my
honored.
it's my oh it's my pleasure to have you here. So let's talk about your journey. I reached out to talk to people about spiritual journeys, and you were so gracious to come back to me. So let's start with the beginning, how you got here. Let's start there.
Wow. Where do I begin? As a young child, I always had this unction, I guess, like this impression in my spirit, like there was something more than just like what we've seen. And so I actually grew up in church. I grew up in a Baptist church, and I would ask all of the really weird questions, and nobody wanted to answer me. And so for the longest time, I just was quiet and I didn't really say anything. And then it wasn't until about 2 years ago where I had a supernatural encounter, and I had met some other supernatural, like people that believed in the supernatural on the Christian side of things. And it really all just made sense from there. And I actually graduate from a school called Emerging Prophets next week. And I've started my podcast and all of that stuff where we hear God and we speak on behalf of God. And it's really cool. Yeah.
What's the name of your podcast?
The name of my podcast is Rebels and Prodigals. So,
Okay, and you just started it?
yes, I've just started. It's actually, I started it a couple years ago, and then I went on a whole spiritual journey where the Lord took me to Bulgaria and took me to Australia and took me to all of these like different destinations around the world, and just widened my perspective about what this is supposed to look like. And then now I'm getting back on it.
That sounds exciting.
Yes.
So let's talk about, so you talked about spiritual kind of, do you have intuition where you talk to people things? What is it that you do?
So there are different gifts from the Holy Spirit. It's all in the Bible, and we're all wired to carry these things, whether you know it or you know Him or whatever. And I can get words of knowledge, so like factual information I shouldn't know about you, or I can basically see what happened to you in the past, what can be currently happening to you, or what could be happening in the future. But it's really at the will of the Lord, not necessarily my own. So that's where the difference is between the Christ believing prophecy versus those that go to a different source, if that makes sense.
Sure. So you're feeling like you're getting divine interventions kind of thing?
Absolutely. It looks a lot like tarot readers. If I were to be like compare it, it'd be like tarot readers or psychics, things of that nature, astral projection. Like I've actually, like the Holy Spirit has taken my spirit out of my body and taken me somewhere else. So just all of those things wrapped together, it's just different sources, really.
So
So
so do you talk to people on the computer or do you meet them in person? What do you do?
really, to be quite honest with you, I meet people in person as well. My church has team prophetic ministry where people will come and they'll receive from the Lord whatever He wants to do, whether it's do like inner healing, so like heart stuff, like depression, anxiety, PTSD. We just last week we had team like ministry, and last week a man that was in the military had come in, and like we all felt a shift in the atmosphere that he just needed to be loved on and told he was okay,
Oh,
and walked him, like the Lord really walked him through some healing in that, like the night terrors that some military members might have. I'm prior military, so it hit home for me a little bit. But so it's just what the Lord wants to do, but we do it in person. I've done it online. A lot of the stuff that I do is actually just like out and about, like at the grocery store. Like I get an unction, like, hey, your name's this. It actually
oh.
means this, or and it goes through this whole thing. So yeah, it's really just living in that lifestyle and doing whatever you feel pressed to do.
Can
So
we circle back for a minute?
yeah,
So you
absolutely.
said were you in the military, the army? What were you in?
I was in the Navy.
In the
Yes.
Navy. I wanted to thank you for your service. I didn't want to miss.
Oh, thank you. Oh yeah, thank you so much.
My pleasure. So let's go back to then. So are you able, Georgia, so do you talk to people on the computer? Are you able to tell me anything? Just a little snippet?
I I could
Or
if I asked the Holy Spirit. Let me see. I figured this was gonna happen.
yeah,
So
you don't,
yeah,
if you don't hear anything, it's totally okay. I get it.
yeah, for sure. We don't want to push and we don't want to act on behalf of the Lord when it's not Him,
Yeah.
because they're gonna be wrong. Let me see. So I see a canvas. I don't know if you're an artist or not. So I see that there's a creative side to you, and not just I'm not talking about like the podcast or anything like that. Oh, the devil is a liar. Look at that. No, but I actually see there's like a canvas in front of this window with a ton of natural light. And I see that there's different color combinations that you're using to paint this picture. And it feels like the Lord is saying that you have a creative gift that thinks outside of the box. And it's out of the ordinary. And even other artists or other creatives are like, I don't know about that, but everything works. Like you have an unction to think outside the box, even in the creative sector. And I feel like the Lord is saying, like, that's the way that He created you. And a lot of people might have in the past kind of been like, I don't think so, and shrugged you off. But I actually believe that He's bringing in a group of people, whether it be spectators of art or like whatever that is to you, to appreciate what you carry.
Well, that's
So,
very nice. Thank you, wherever the message
yes.
is coming from. Oh, that
Yes.
was nice, Georgia. So the reason I brought you on is because as I did a group of people that were doing spiritual sides, they had, we don't know what really is out there, but we certainly know there's something more perhaps than what's
For
here.
sure.
So
Absolutely.
some people are blessed like yourself that are able to have intuition, able to see things, able to hear things. So it's interesting to bring it forward and say to people, whatever their thoughts are, maybe they want to learn how to use their skills.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Biblically speaking, because that's where I'm coming from, the source that I come from is Jesus and the Holy Spirit. We're all wired to carry these gifts. So we actually all can hear from the Lord. So when it comes to the supernatural, like we're all able to tap into that. It's just a matter of knowing that we're all able to hear the Lord. And when we have partnership with Holy Spirit, all of those other gifts come too. So it's just a matter of knowing it. And it's a matter of having a relationship in the spiritual with Holy Spirit. So it's actually cool when you think about it, because people will say, oh, like that person can hear, or that person can do this or that or whatever. But the reality is that we all have the opportunity to do. So
Yeah.
that's to what my podcast is going to lean into eventually, is teaching people that. And so they don't have to go to these sources. They don't have to do all of that. They can just hear for themselves.
Yeah, I think a lot of things like meditation and mindfulness, a lot of those things really are based on going inside and finding yourself and expanding out to the universe sort of thing. And you
Yes.
probably will get vibrations and messages from the universe or your higher self, God, whatever you wish to use that channel. But as long as it's all for good, I think that's what's important.
I would say this. I would say that intentions very much mean something, but the reality is that there's two different sources. And I'm not saying anything about anybody, like there's no judgment or anything. But when it comes to the different sources, some of these sources have transactions where, okay, I'll give you this, but in exchange for something maybe negative. Like I know a lot of psychics, a lot of witches that I have had conversations with. It's like there's one that I know particularly personally, she has fibromyalgia. And I asked her, I was just like, have you ever considered healing? Because Jesus heals, like he's the healer. He did it in the Bible. And I was like, have you ever considered asking for healing? And she's, oh no, it's part of the gift. Like it's like it just comes with the gift, right? Of being able to see and prophecy and like astral project. And that's what I'm getting at, is that there are these things from these other sources where it's, oh, fibromyalgia, or I can't see well, like physically see well, or I have some type of blood disorder. Like I've heard all of this from all of those things. But when it comes to Holy Spirit and Jesus, like there is no negative exchange. Like I've actually had more positive exchange in this area than I ever have with anything else, if that makes sense. So I think that the intention actually it does mean something, but where it's coming from, it actually might help hurt the receiver more than it helps. Like the witch or the psychic or whatever that is, or whatever you identify, like a medium too. There's like negative exchanges with those sources versus the purity and the goodness of that one. So I would say yes, everybody like I hope everybody that doesn't have malicious intentions. I think most of them have good intentions, but it hurts them if it's not from the one that is good, if that makes sense to you.
I think everyone has, it's just my opinion, and
For
everybody
sure,
has to have their
absolutely.
own opinion. But I think, yes, I think if you have good thoughts and you have good intentions, things happen in the right way. If you have not so good intentions and bad intentions, I think we all
Mhm.
frustrated in life and we think the wrong
Oh,
thoughts at times.
absolutely.
And then, yeah, you find your day and your week or your month is not going to turn out as well as you would have liked. So I think you do have to control your emotions and your thought
Absolutely.
process. And then if you get too dark, of course, get some help. But, and that's important to that I think
Mm,
get professional help if they're at that point. But other than that, I think most people have usually mostly good days, sometimes not so good days. And you just have to flow with it and know that on the days that aren't so good, you're learning lessons. So if you're down and there's things bothering you, there's something saying, hey, you got to address this and try to figure that out.
absolutely.
And then that's going to remove that energy and then you're going to be able to get more positive. Would that make sense?
Absolutely. I think there's parts of our heart that they actually wrestle with each other in our humanity, our
I agree.
emotional side and our functional side. And then you have the guardian part of it that wants to protect, right? So, like, even when you have these three aspects of your heart and you sit back and, like, on a daily basis, like, it doesn't matter what your source is or it doesn't matter what you believe. Like, we're all human. These are all aspects of our heart or
Yeah.
whatever. And so, like, the inner healing that needs to take place for me personally when I was younger, like I wasn't told any of that. And I think a lot of what's happened, and because I don't know what you believe, I don't know if you've ever been hurt by Christianity, I don't know if you've ever been hurt by religion in general, but there's been a lot of lack in acknowledging our humanity. And it's actually hurt people that like sit here and be like, I see all these angels and I see these like wicked things all day. And then they don't acknowledge that. They push it aside and they're like, hey, like I am struggling in my heart. Like I think that I'm struggling with depression or I think that I'm struggling with anger, which would anger could very well turn into something dark. You know what I mean? And then it just got pushed to the side. And the reality was like, that was never the design.
No.
And so it's important for us to open back the door and have some type of level of vulnerability because there's different levels to vulnerability depending on relationship with whoever is in front of you. But if we can create safe places, even naturally and supernaturally, we can really break down some barriers to get some people healed where they are flowing positive for the most part.
Yeah, no, that's
So,
good. That's good. So let's talk about from there. Let's talk about your book. You indicated to me that you were writing a book. You have a collaboration and then you're writing one of your own.
yes.
Let's talk about your collaboration.
Perfect. So when I think it was a couple months ago, I got a call because my friend actually wrote a book herself and she had referred me to this publishing company and they have a collaboration called Voices of Hope. So each collaborator writes a chapter and it's basically about the synopsis is about overcoming trauma or being an overcomer. And I've my testimonies on Spotify with my podcast about everything that I've gone through up to I would say 2023. There's more now, but up to 2023, like I've had a lot of trauma happen, but I've also overcame that and I've walked out a lot of healing in my heart and a lot of forgiveness. And so it's just a matter of me I picked a story from I pulled a story from that and what I learned and what I had to walk out of and it's going to be in that book and it's going to be released in September.
very
So
good. Very good.
yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about your journey? Is that possible, or are you comfortable to do that, or do you
Absolutely.
want to
So we
wait?
I can talk a little bit. Let me see. What should I say, Lord? Okay. So I'd already touched base on like my childhood. Like I was always asking the hard questions that nobody could answer. Like, why do I see these things? Or what's all with all these animals with all these eyes in Revelation? Like if you read the Bible, there's some weird stuff at the end of it. And I was just like, no, I want to talk about this. This is weird. Like this kind of resonates with me and the things that I see, and nobody was able to answer. So that really put me in a space mentally as a child that I was too big for the rooms that I was in. I was too much for everybody. Like I was the weird kid. And so I had these like my inner critic started to believe those things, like started to believe those lies. And so, what you think is what you are, that kind of thing. And so I just kind of started walking in this rejection and this hurt and then this rebellion. And right around 15, I was dating a boy. I dated him for 2 years and he died in a freak ATV accident.
I'm sorry.
And oh no, I'm healed and he's in a better place. But at the time, it was very detrimental to me. Obviously, it would be traumatic to anyone, whether he was just my friend or my boyfriend or whatever. But the last thing I said to him was very hateful because I was young and immature and just saying something that I knew would hurt his feelings. And that was the last thing that I had said to him. And for the longest time, I actually held that guilt and that shame against myself. And then I finally forgave myself. And like I forgave him for the things that, because it made me mad that he was doing stupid crap and he got hurt. So people don't talk about that, but it's just parents pass away or grandparents pass away and they've been smoking and they knew they shouldn't have been smoking and they did it anyway. Children have a tendency, or they can be like, hey, like you did this crap. So I think it's important to be vulnerable with that. Like when it comes to people who have passed. Oh, if he just wouldn't have done this, or he would have just done this, that anger and just letting that go and just being vulnerable and being able to acknowledge that anger even exists. Because a lot of people that like that taboo, stuff like that. So that's part of my story, is just like healing and being vulnerable about my feelings. And then to fast forward a little bit, I joined the Navy. I'm from a really small town in Tennessee
Oh, okay.
where I wasn't exposed to a lot. I was very sheltered as a child. And I left the first time I'd ever been past the Mississippi River to the west and went straight to San Diego, California, where it was a complete culture shock. In my hometown, if someone liked you romantically or intimately, like you knew it. They were like, they weren't lying. They weren't saying anything just to get you to do something with them. And because it was so conservative, and then I go to the West Coast where it's very progressive, and that's just not the culture of the people. And so I went through a lot of hurt romantically. I was assaulted. I won't get into that too deeply. So I won't, but I was assaulted, and that really changed the trajectory of what I felt about myself. And so, like, just going forward, there were several, like, very deep things that happened to me because that wasn't the first time, or that wasn't the last time, sorry. And just like walking those things out, like forgiving those people, like all of those dynamics of a tragic death in my childhood, being assaulted. I was actually assaulted by a man dressed like a woman. So, like, you have all of these progressive arguments that are happening on social media. So, like, I've actually endured things like that when it comes to the controversies that we're seeing in our society and culture. And just being able to forgive that and not holding that against a people, right? Like, I don't have a bias, or I don't have some type of like resentment for a certain group of people because one person did something they weren't supposed to. So, but I'm also able to love them well now. You know what I mean? So it's also multifaceted. And so the book that I'm going to be writing, I'm not going to release the title because I haven't announced it or
Sure.
whatever, but like my personal book is how I've walked all of those things out. When we look at society, or we look at just like getting on social media and seeing comments on all of these things, like the world is drenched in some pain and it's drenched in some trauma. And just to be someone that's, hey, I've walked this out, I've done all of this, and this is what helped me this is what I've learned from that. And this is how my character developed through letting go and letting God, really. And so that is what my book is about, through all of those little testimonies of all of those like awful things,
Yeah.
and just overcoming that and having that spiritual journey as well, where the Holy Spirit or the Lord like came in and cleaned some stuff up, and then had conversations with me, or angels appeared, talked to me. And the angels are just messengers for the Lord, but they come and they help you. There's supernatural help through all of these things, and opening the door, because half the church thinks I'm a witch, but I'm actually, so there is some hurt where they think like they don't accept me necessarily, because they're like, oh, like you're weird, but like it's not true. Like we're all wired for that. And there's just like some lack of knowledge there. And just to put some perspective on it. So it opens the door for a lot of people to reconcile to each other, and to stop accusing each other, and to forgive themselves and one another, just to be free from all of that. So that's really what my book is about.
Thank you
So
for sharing that. And I'm sorry that you went through those things, but I'm glad that you found something that makes you feel positive and you're
absolutely.
giving back to people, which is nice. You wrote books to help people if they're going through it, they can see that you went through it and you made it, so they can make it too. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
that's a wonderful gift that you're able to give to people. So where do you see yourself in the next 5 years, Georgia?
I actually had a conversation about this yesterday. Just moving forward and getting myself out there more in person. I see myself being someone creating and cultivating a safe place for the mystics, the people who see, the people who dream, the people who discern things. Like you can know something about someone, and like all those things, and all of the taboo things that people might experience, or like they might start experiencing or have been experiencing. I'm really trying to cultivate a really safe place for people to be those people, and to know their identity and who they were made to be, versus like what the world told them to be. And just creating, I wouldn't say a school, but just a community where it like trains them on how to steward those things, and steward them well and steward them safely. And I plan on creating more books, just depending on like the subjects that manifest themselves. And I also see myself traveling and doing a lot of outreach
Oh, okay.
to the urban areas of the United States, like the cities, and probably overseas as well. I just don't know what countries just yet. But like that is where I see myself, as writing more books, creating a community in person. It might even start to bleed into the online space or the media space, kind of just seeing where that goes and where God leads me to do that. And so, yeah, that's where I see myself in 5 years.
If someone wanted to reach you today, what's the best place to get you?
Honestly, the best place to find me would be Facebook. So I have a Facebook group, is Rebels and Prodigals. I also have Instagram, same thing, Rebels and Prodigals, TikTok, and then Spotify is where my podcast is. And I'm working to get it on iTunes, and I'm working to get it on YouTube as well. So to answer your question, I have all of those facets, but the best one right now in this current moment would be Facebook.
I will make sure all of that's on our show note. You'll get that to me. And from there, I'd like to thank you so much for being on today. I had a great conversation with you, and it was really nice of you to
Me
share your
too.
story.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you letting me, and I just letting me come on here, and I just wanted to honor you for being open-minded, right? For us to have a dialogue that was friendly and open. And I really do honor that. So thank you so much.
My pleasure, my friend. So to everyone, this is Jeorja Turner. I'm going to have all her information here. You'll be able to check out her Facebook page and all her social media. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Teresa Aker from Success Diaries with Teresa Aker. I hope you're all having a great day. Do subscribe to my channel. I truly appreciate that. Bye-bye now.